In the vast tapestry of human history, few names shine as brightly as that of Alexander the Great. Born into a world of war and ambition, he would rise to become one of the most legendary figures of all time, a man of unparalleled military genius. Driven by an unshakable belief in his own destiny, he carved out an empire stretching from Greece to the edges of India. But was he truly a visionary, or merely a ruthless conqueror? This is the incredible story of Alexander the Great, the man who sought to rule the world. Let's start the video. More than 2,000 years ago, a young warrior set out on a journey that would change the course of history. A man who defeated empires, built cities, and dreamed of ruling the entire world. His name was Alexander the Great. But was he truly great? Or was he simply the product of war, ambition, and fate? This is his story. Alexander was born in 356 BC in Pella, the capital of the Macedonian kingdom. His father, King Philip II, was a brilliant military strategist and a ruler who had transformed Macedonia into a dominant power in Greece. His mother, Olympias, was a deeply religious and ambitious woman who claimed divine ancestry, telling Alexander that he was the son of Zeus himself. This belief fueled Alexander's confidence, making him believe he was destined for greatness. As a boy, Alexander was tutored by none other than the great philosopher Aristotle. Under Aristotle's guidance, he studied philosophy, science, literature, and most importantly, the art of war. He was fascinated by the tales of Achilles from the Iliad and saw himself as a living embodiment of the legendary warrior. By the age of 16, he was already leading armies, displaying a level of intelligence and strategic thinking far beyond his years. He was not just a warrior, but also a scholar and a visionary. But his real story began when his father was assassinated in 336 BC. At just 20 years old, Alexander ascended to the throne of Macedonia. Many believed he was too young to rule, but he quickly proved his doubters wrong. His first challenge came from rebellious city-states in Greece, including Thebes and Athens, who saw Philip's death as an opportunity to regain their independence. Alexander crushed them with brutal efficiency, burning Thebes to the ground and sparing only the temples and the house of the poet Pindar. His message was clear: he would not tolerate rebellion. With Greece under his control, Alexander set his sights on something much bigger. His father had dreamed of conquering the Persian Empire, but now that dream belonged to Alexander. Persia, ruled by King Darius III, was the largest and most powerful empire in the world, stretching from modern-day Turkey to India. No one believed that a young Macedonian king could challenge such an empire, but Alexander had an unshakable belief in his destiny. In 334 BC, Alexander crossed into Asia with an army of just 35,000 men. His first challenge was the Persian army at the Battle of Granice. The Persian forces vastly outnumbered his troops, but Alexander's bold strategy and fearless leadership led to a stunning victory. The Persians underestimated him, and they paid the price. With his first major victory secured, Alexander continued his march through Asia Minor, liberating Greek cities under Persian control. His next great test came at the Battle of Issus in 333 BC. King Darius III personally led an army of over 100,000 men against Alexander. On paper, it seemed impossible for the Macedonians to win, but Alexander was a master of battlefield tactics. He struck directly at Darius, forcing the Persian king to flee the battlefield. With Darius gone, the Persian army collapsed, and Alexander claimed another decisive victory. Darius had abandoned his own family in his escape, and Alexander, rather than harming them, treated them with great respect. This act of mercy earned him admiration even among his enemies. After Issus, Alexander turned his attention to one of the most heavily fortified cities in the world, Tyre. The island city was an impenetrable fortress, surrounded by water and massive walls. No army had ever successfully taken it, but Alexander was determined. He built a causeway stretching across the sea and relentlessly attacked the city for 7 months. When Tyre finally fell, he made an example of his defenders, executing thousands and selling many into slavery. The message was clear: resisting Alexander meant certain destruction. With Tyre defeated, Alexander marched into Egypt, where he was welcomed as a liberator. The Egyptians, who had suffered under Persian rule, saw him as a god. In 331 BC, he founded the city of Alexandria, which would go on to become one of the greatest centers of learning and culture in the ancient world. While in Egypt, he visited the Oracle of Ammon, where he was declared the son of Zeus. Whether he truly believed this or simply used it to strengthen his rule, the idea of Alexander as a god king began to take hold, but his journey was far from over. With Egypt under his control, Alexander prepared for his greatest battle yet, the final showdown with Darius III at Gaugamela. Darius had assembled the largest army he had ever commanded, with war elephants and hundreds of thousands of soldiers. The odds were stacked against Alexander, but once again, he outmaneuvered his enemy. With brilliant tactics and unmatched courage, he led his forces to victory. Darius fled once more, but was eventually assassinated by his own men. With Darius dead, Alexander was now the ruler of the Persian Empire. Despite having conquered the largest empire in the world, Alexander was not satisfied. He wanted more. His next goal was India. In 326 BC, he crossed into the Indian subcontinent, where he faced King Porus at the Battle of the Hydaspes River. Porus had massive war elephants that struck fear into Alexander's troops, but after a fierce battle, Alexander emerged victorious. Instead of humiliating Porus, he made him an ally, recognizing his strength and leadership. However, Alexander's army had had enough. They had marched thousands of miles, fought endless battles, and faced brutal conditions. They refused to go any further. For the first time, Alexander was forced to turn back. Though disappointed, he respected his soldiers' decision. The journey home proved just as difficult. Alexander led his men through the harsh deserts of Persia, where many perished. He reached Babylon in 323 BC, where he began planning new conquests, possibly against Arabia. But fate had other plans. He fell mysteriously ill, and after days of suffering, died at the age of just 32. His empire, which stretched from Greece to India, had no clear successor. His generals divided it among themselves, and within a few decades, the great empire he had built crumbled. But Alexander's legacy endured. He had spread Greek culture across the known world, founded cities that flourished for centuries, and forever changed history. Was Alexander truly great? He was a military genius, a visionary leader, and a man who shaped shaped the course of civilization, but his ambition also brought destruction and suffering. His empire did not last, yet his name still echoes through history. He was a warrior, a conqueror, and a legend. This was Alexander, the man who dared to dream of ruling the world.